Dobry den,
Popravete,
and welcome back to our little Bulgarian adventure.
and happy St Patrick's Day.
Yes, to all our Irish family out there.
And viewers, of course.
And viewers,
Yes. Well, this week, the weather's been up and down.
It has. It's been very changeable. We've had lovely days, and we've actually had a whole day of rain yesterday.
Yes.
Which was a bit of a shock to the system.
We weren't expecting it, but you take it in your stride, don't you? So that curtailed anything outside, but that's the way it goes. But we did start the week with a trip out.
Yes, we spent a lovely day with our friends Ivan and Teresa.
And Dexter.
And Dexter. Yeah, we got to see Dexter again, who seems to be still growing.
Yes. He may turn out to be a reasonably largish dog.
Certainly tall. I don't think he's ever going to be large.
No. He's not Winston proportions. But,
no, he hasn't got the bulk, has he?
No. But we had a lovely meal. We had Sussex bacon roly-poly.
Yes, which if you watch Ivan's video this week, we'll probably put a link down below.
Or up there.
Or somewhere, wherever Adam can fit it in. He actually shows you how to make, and we can vouch that it was delicious.
Oh yes. Well worth the effort. So thank you very much, guys.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
It was a lovely day out.
Yeah.
Lovely to spend some time with you.
Yes. And then we came back here to cut down some trees. Yeah. Among other things.
Yeah, more tree felling.
Yes.
Still had a couple of large dead trees to take down.
Yeah, just to make the woodland safe. And of course, we've got the electric chainsaw, so Max is... I'm quite impressed with it. Max is very impressed with it.
Yeah, Max continued his love affair with the electric chainsaw.
Yes. So now, as you'll see here, we have a huge amount of wood waiting to be processed for next year's firewood. I will get round to it.
At some point.
At some point. And you've been busy in the garden as well.
Yes, we had quite a lot of seed planting this week. I had a little temporary greenhouse has finally got put up.
Yeah.
The week before, so we've planted vegetables and herbs and flowers and just waiting for the seeds to come up now.
And this year we're not expecting any surprise arrivals that will spoil our gardening season. So.
Yes.
Not like last year.
Hopefully we'll actually get some plants in this year.
Yeah. So you've also been tidying up the garden.
Yeah, we've started taking the weeds and leaves off from last year.
Yeah.
In little bits, just as to get the beds ready for the seeds when they do come.
Yeah. So that's all moving forward quite nicely. The kitchen is still progressing, albeit slowly.
Yes.
We're at the stage now where we're putting stuff on walls and having to wait for it to dry before we put more stuff on walls and wait for that to dry. But this is what I've done this week. We're starting this week with some plastering. I've got these areas here to make good and build the subsurface back up again. This is where the old concrete sink was. If you remember, we took that out the very first job we did. We took the tiles off. This was where the tiles were stuck to the wall. So we got to replace the sub plaster to give me a scratch coat that I can then put the proper plastering on at the top. Now on the right hand side, that's going to be behind some splashback panels, so that's not quite so important. But the left hand side next to the window, that's going to be an exposed surface, so I need to get this as smooth as I can, ready for me to put the proper plaster on the top and give us a proper wall finish. So I'll be using MPI 25 for this, and we'll see how it goes. The first job is to wet the wall down. Get a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, it helps bring the dust down. Secondly, if you've got a wet wall, the moisture from the MPI 25 isn't drawn out so quickly, which makes it set up better, adhere to the wall better, and give you a stronger bond. I do it once the first time, then I'll let it set up for 5 minutes or so, then I'll do it again. This is to make sure the wall is properly wet, so that when I apply the MPI 25, it adheres better and doesn't dry out. That's the mud brick covered with the first layer of MPI 25. That gives me a solid base to actually do the smooth plastering on top of. Ironically, most of this is going to be hidden by splashback and cupboards, but it needs doing, so I'm doing it. I'm also filling the bits between the stones underneath to give me a solid barrier there as well. The next bit to do is the bit I filled last week between the stones. I'm now going to put a top coat on. So I'll go and mix up the stuff and get on with that. That's the wall now got its base stabilising layer on. It's quite thick. It's going to take a couple of days to dry out before I can do anything with it really. We don't try to decide, as it's hidden behind cupboards, how much more we need to do to it, but we'll come back to that once it's dry. Next I'll move on to these bits of exposed stonework. They get the same treatment. On this side of the steps they're going behind a cupboard, so again it doesn't have to be particularly wonderful, and the top part's going behind splashback. Over on the far side there, a slightly different matter, but I'll do as good a job as I can. So I've now finished putting the first coat of MPI 25, which is the lime plaster. That's the base for this wall. On this side here, I've put this piece of wood here to give me an edge that I can go up to fill in the gaps. This edge will then give me something to work from when I'm doing the inside of the stairs. The bottom's filled. It's going to need a top coat of some sort of plaster. I haven't bothered going over where the sand is, where the kind of original plaster is on the far side. I'll do that with the proper plaster at the end. But now it's a case of letting that dry. So while it's drying, turn my attention to the ceiling. My first job up here on the ceiling is to widen these gaps between the ends of the plasterboards. The sides are shaped but the ends are just flat, so you have to dig out a bit so that you get enough material in there to bind them together so they don't crack. So I've done that ready for taping. And I've also been filling the gaps at the edge of the plasterboard to the wall. They'll be plastered over, but they need something for the plaster to sit on, so I've been using special plaster filler for that. And I've got this far. I just have this last corners to go, and I've run out of filler. So that's as good a point as any to leave it for this week. I'll finish that, get some more filler, finish it off next week, tape up the ceiling and put the first coat of plaster on.
Yeah, there is hope on the horizon that we'll eventually get it done.
Eventually.
We also had our Bulgarian lesson starting up again this week.
Yes, on Wednesday we went into Targovishti for our Bulgarian lessons.
Spent the first half hour looking blankly at each other.
Yes, it was a revision session which we clearly needed.
Yeah, clearly.
It wasn't, we weren't fluent by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but we did manage to talk about seed planting.
Yes, well, I say we. Lynn did.
Yeah. Yes, it was quite stressful the first half an hour, but the last hour was much better. It all started slotting into place again, so
suddenly we were remembering stuff, weren't we?
Yeah, we came out feeling like we'd achieved something.
Yes, and also realising we need to put a lot more work in.
As per usual.
But that brings us nicely on to this week's Bulgarian sentence.
And what's it this week, Adam?
This week we're another useful sentence that you probably won't hear very often.
Very useful for us anyway.
Definitely. It goes something like this. Moля, popravete, pravia, gрешки.
Which means, please correct me if I make mistakes.
So it's quite relevant for us.
Yes.
We were going to do it in a singular, make a mistake, and we realised we're going to make
That's
more than
unlikely.
one. That's just optimistic.
So it is the plural.
Yes. And for my mum, I did put the words on the screen,
Yes.
as requested. And speaking of mothers, I'd just like to wish my mother and every mother out there Happy Mother's Day.
Yes. Happy Mother's Day in the UK.
In the UK, yes. It's a different date out here, but in the UK, Mother's Day. So
That's
Happy
on
Mother's
Saturday.
Day. Well, I think that's probably about it for us this week.
Yes, I want to get back outside to the garden.
The sun is shining.
And I know you're desperate to get back to doing filling.
Yes, I can't wait. But once it's done, it's done. So until next week, it just leaves us to say,
Stay safe.
be well.
Skoro.
Skoro.